Hello, I am Cody Allingham and this is the Transformation of Value podcast. Today I talk with Simon and Jason, two British Bitcoiners who are involved in organising meetups and events throughout the UK, as well as promoting merchant adoption of Bitcoin. Simon, also known as Hodl Solo, is part of the LaserEyesCards project, is the co-founder of Bridge to Bitcoin, and organises the Northhamptonshire Bitcoin Meetup. And Jason organises the Suffolk Bitcoin Meetup. I think there is a lot we can learn from this conversation, and it really provided some great insight into approaches to merchant adoption and engaging with businesses, as well as running Bitcoin meetups and events. Now, if you want to get in touch with me, please send an email to hello@thetransformationofvalue.com and I will get back to you. I do hope you enjoyed this episode. If you would like to support the show, please consider streaming some Satoshis via your favourite podcasting 2.0 platform such as Fountain or Breeze. Otherwise, on to the show. Yeah, no, it's I used to do another podcast with a good friend in the UK, and it was always either early starts or late evenings, trying to just get the time zones right. But it lent itself to the name of the show, which was Conversations Late at Night, my previous show. So having a connection with the other side of the world is quite wonderful, though. Jason, Simon, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I reached out to Jason. You run the Suffolk Bitcoin Twitter account and a number of meetups there. And I was sort of saying, like, look, what's happened in New Zealand in the last couple of months has been that we've developed a real meetup scene for Bitcoin. And I sort of saw what you guys have been doing for a little bit longer, and I thought, wow, there must be some connections. There must be some ideas around what's happening with your meetups and more broadly with Bitcoin in the UK. And I really wanted to get everyone together along with Simon, who's looking at Bridge to Bitcoin, which is the merchant acceptance of Bitcoin in the UK, and also some of the broader events around Bitcoin, and just get us three together to just really see what we can share and learn from each other around events, Bitcoin, and more generally what's happening in the space. But yeah, Jason, I mean, I thought maybe starting with yourself, sort of Suffolk Bitcoin and how that started and what your story was with beginning that meetup.
Yeah, I suppose my journey with Bitcoin really kind of started about this time last year. I heard a UK podcast which had Greg Foss on as a guest. I'd been kind of in the broader crypto space for a little bit longer, but not too long. And that interview just kind of made it all fall into place for me. That was kind of the start of my journey down the rabbit hole. So I just kind of started following a few Bitcoiners on Twitter and just seeing what was happening generally in the UK, more broadly around the world. Saw there were a few meetup events in the country, but there's nothing around me. This kind of was around the time that a coffee shop not too far from me started accepting Bitcoin as payments. So it all kind of just fell into place kind of around the same time. And I thought, well, if there's nothing happening near me, I'll start a Twitter account, which was Suffolk Bitcoin. Because it's quite a rural county out in the east of England, I thought I'll make it kind of geographically broad so that it might attract more people. And we had a few people to come to the first meetup, which was kind of an ad hoc. Oh, there's a few of us around this weekend. Let's go. I think really having a venue which accepts Bitcoin really helps, because that's half the battle sometimes. If people will go to any place and kind of spend fiat and they'll begrudgingly hand it over, where when the business is accepting Bitcoin, it's run by Bitcoiners, there's a little bit more of a buzz about it, a little bit more of a pull. So there were a few of us at that first up, and then let's get something in the diary for maybe a month or 2 months down the line. Just give this kind of time to percolate through the local community. And then since then, we've done a monthly meetup on a Sunday, last Sunday of the month at 11. Just rather than trying to figure out diary dates in your head, it's easy to remember. It's the last Sunday. It's grown from there, really. Simon helped me set up a Telegram group, which I think he's probably set up 90% of the Telegram groups for the UK meetup scene. So that there's people kind of chatting in that every day. And it goes from real kind of like Bitcoin maxi stuff down to, I've just bought a Raspberry Pi. How do I get this set up? and there's some real technical knowledge in there. So it's just really interesting. It's almost, yes, it's just nice keeping in touch with people throughout the week. And then when we have the monthly meetup, it's kind of those conversations kind of quickly accelerate into the nitty gritty and the details that people are really after.
Yeah, certainly. And Simon, with that sort of more broadly Bitcoin events in the UK, I mean, how did that get started? How did you begin looking at organising those things, and what have you learned along the way?
Well, I kind of started pretty much in the same way that Jason did, I suppose. It probably started for me in even though I've been in Bitcoin since 2013, but I had not really got involved with the community in any way at all. I just been watching it from the sidelines, and it was at the time of the Miami conference in 2022, and watching everything going on over in America, and just thinking they were so far ahead of us in their meetup scenes, where there's so many more of them and so big compared to what it looked like there was in the UK. I just scouring around Twitter and the internet, I found 8 or so meetups around the country, and they didn't seem to have huge turnouts for them. But I was sort of really inspired, I suppose, by that in 2022 by the Miami conference, and thought that I would start one myself. So I started the Northamptonshire Bitcoin network at the beginning of April, I think it was, last year, and then from that I thought, where could I actually publicize this and get it out on the internet? As a sort of UK focused place to kind of advertise it, if you like, and there didn't really seem to be anywhere that did that. So I thought about starting bitcoinevents.uk. So that's a website to initially list my own podcast and my own meetup and all the others that I could find. So I like I said, I scoured Twitter and DM'd a lot of the meetup organisers, got the details from them, as to what the venues that they meet up at, and then sort of used Bitcoin events to get that out to the world. And then sort of, I did that. There's a map on there which shows the different locations around the UK that the meetups happen. And looking at that from a visual point of view, you can really see where the gaps are in the country. Initially there was a big space in the Suffolk, Norfolk kind of area. So, Jason's filled that in. And over the last 12 months, it's gradually just filled out that map. And it's still a long way to go. We're still behind countries like Germany. Germany got a great meetup scene over there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, loads. So that they like you might have seen, there was a tweet I put out from the Bitcoin events account, I think earlier in the week, sort of summing up, because we've just come around to the 12-month mark now, where I started 12 months ago. So I went back through and sort of checked out the website at the different months that I'd listed the meetups, and there was 11 meetups which I initially listed that were already in existence, and we've got 38 meetups now in the UK. So there's been huge growth in the meetups, and some of those are small. Some might be 3 or 4 guys in a pub meeting up. But some of them are getting really big. I think the biggest one probably is the London Bitcoin space. I mean, they've got a huge catchment area down there. And probably the second biggest one now, I'd say, is Jason's Suffolk meetup. For numbers, I'd say. I mean, I met Jason for the first time in person. What was it? Was it last week or the week before? At his meetup.
About 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, there was 25 people at that meetup. So it was crazy.
You brought 4 of those though.
But, well, 5 including me. Yeah, true.
That's a good turnout, though. I mean,
yeah, I mean there was literally nowhere to sit when we got there, because it was so full. There was no seats left. It was really
interesting. So you would say London is the Bitcoin capital of the UK, or is there somewhere that has got a bit more punch per capita?
I think it's London, really.
Yeah, that's interesting because we've found it's a little bit different in New Zealand. We've had a number of meetups here, and obviously Auckland is our biggest city, 1.5 million people, but actually Christchurch, which is a lot smaller, seems to have the Bitcoin heart. Bit of a shout out down south, but we went to a meetup there a couple of weeks ago, and just the turnout was great. The kind of the attitude towards Bitcoin, it really seemed to click with just the way the city kind of is, and sort of what its values are. And it's a little bit more of a rural place, I would say. It's still a city, but it's a lot more surrounded by farmland and that sort of thing. And I have noticed a connection, and I wonder if it's similar with Suffolk, where you've got, I imagine, a lot of farmland out that way, and maybe that sort of sense of real physical connection, which maybe if you're in London, there's less of that sort of that connection to what Bitcoin really stands for. So I don't know. That's just an observation that I've found with one data point. But I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Jason.
Yeah, there's quite where I live, Bury St Edmunds. There's quite a thriving market scene. So twice a week there's a market in the town centre,
like a farmers market type thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So lots of grocers, kind of plants, meat. Just the usual things, which I suppose, that kind of rural feel of exchanging produce and things like that is probably thinking a little bit more.
It's more self sovereign, like.
Yeah, I'm not. Clearly not everybody who locally is employed in that. Is employed in agriculture. But I think there's something to that. I think there is certainly and using cash as well, cash payments. So clearly, that a lot of the market stores will take cash over card as a preference. So I think there are clear connections there. I wouldn't have thought that having tried to speak to a few businesses about kind of Bitcoin just kind of locally, it's not on anyone's radar. It's not, they need a lot more touch points before they will, even entertain the thought of Bitcoin payments, because it just sounds like too scary, too futuristic. I'm not sure what their thinking is, but I think there's still a big leap for lots of our local businesses and market traders to accept Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, that's an ongoing challenge, but I think, my observation as well with Auckland, and maybe there's some similarities with London. It's kind of quite an urban city, very cosmopolitan, and there's this distance. And obviously there's a lot of fintech in London, so you might find that there's more of an attraction for the shitcoin side of things with that. But yeah, that kind of real connection, that self-sovereign aspect, I do think that there's an emerging connection between those two that we're seeing globally. Things like the Beef Initiative, all of that stuff, where it's like that kind of change in urban structure and just the way we engage with each other financially is becoming cognizant. So yeah, certainly it's an interesting point there. But coming back to your work, Simon, just looking at this broader aspect of merchant acceptance and kind of getting shops using Bitcoin, creating that circular economy. How's that been tracking in the UK? Is there obviously there's a cafe in Suffolk where I can go and buy coffee with Bitcoin, but more broadly, what's the scene like for that in the UK?
Well, it's growing. That's with the meetups as well. It's when you look at the graphs of adoption up, and that's going back to why I started Bitcoin events was because I had a real interest in merchant adoption as well, and there was that sort of revelation that I had kind of early on that meetups work hand in hand with the merchant adoption side of things. So if you've got a meetup with 30 guys regularly, meeting up in the pub, and one of you can onboard the local butchers or the local ice cream parlor or whatever it is, you can direct those guys to that business and guarantee that business, a constant stream of sats, if you like. So I think in the past, maybe before the Lightning Network, there was a lot of businesses that did start to accept, well, not a lot, but there was businesses that started to accept Bitcoin, but they they didn't really get any customers, and so businesses change hands and staff changes, and they weren't really a lot of it faded away after a while. But if you can focus the community in each area of the country with a meetup, you can use that as leverage, to get the business some new customers, but B, just to sort of guarantee them some constant inflow of sats. So that's what we did. So Bridge to Bitcoin was a business that we kind of started alongside Bitcoin events, if you like, and that's a partnership with me and two guys, Chris and James. So we really leveraged the meetup scene across the UK to help. I mean, what we basically just realized along the way is that we're a marketing company. So if a business accepts Bitcoin, we then market that business to the Bitcoin community. So it's a guarantee that they're going to have this whole new set of customers that otherwise wouldn't have known about their business. And there's really no downside for them. It's not like it doesn't cost them anything. We don't charge for our services. I mean, I'm on a Zoom call almost every night now with different businesses that we're getting set up. We just did a huge it's called the Hospitality, Restaurant and Catering Expo in London, and it was over 3 days. And so we went down there to Bridge to Bitcoin and exhibited down there and sort of advertised our services, I suppose, to the normie world for the first time. We'd normally just been operating sort of within the Bitcoin space, but this was really getting out there into the non-Bitcoin world, and we had massive success from it. We got 108 leads from different businesses, and a lot of those businesses are, well, not there are several of those businesses that are chains of businesses, chains of convenience stores, chains of restaurants, hotels. So it's going to take us months to go through the list now and follow up with all these businesses. But the way that we sell it to them is that the meetup scene is a growing thing in this country, and and Bitcoin is a really loyal. We'll like I was at Jason's meetup, and it's a fair old drive for me. We drive a long way out of our way to visit a business that it's just because they accept Bitcoin. So once these businesses sort of realize there's no downside to it, they were loving it. Especially there was a lot of businesses there that were owned by, there were new startup businesses, young couples. There was they kind of get it anyway. So there's just no downside to them for it, and so they were loving it. So it's really, I think, very positive for what's going on. The meetup scene's growing. We've got about 150 businesses, I think, in the UK at the moment that accept Bitcoin, and I know we're not going to get all 108 of these leads over the line, but if we get half of them, it's going to be a massive surge of businesses.
Yeah. And Jason, with the cafe in Suffolk, that sort of was the beginning of this. Was that a place that you knew about before? Like, how did they begin accepting Bitcoin? Like, what was their story to doing that?
The owner's brother is quite well known in the Bitcoin scene.
Okay.
So he onboarded them.
I see.
And that was a massive pull for lots of people.
Yeah.
And it still is, so people go out of the way, and just because they know that's where his brother works. I think they just took the leap that, okay, we'll see what happens. And they, like Simon says, it's people will drive. So the first time I went, there was a chap from about an hour and a half away. He just come on his motorbike with his girlfriend to have a cup of coffee because he could pay in sats.
Yeah.
And he filmed it with some impressive HD camera, and he was loving every second of it.
Yeah. sorry, my learnings and sort of sharing kind of where we're at with that in New Zealand here, like we have a handful of places. If you go on BTC Map, there's a few places that accept Bitcoin. But as I said a couple of weeks ago, we went down to Christchurch for the BitKiwi meetup, which was very well organised, and we actually had a bit of a dinner that night. So at the bar that we were at, well, two things. So at the bar we had the meetup. They were a fiat venue, but the BitKiwi guys have come up with this really great system of using Lightning. And having a tab with the bar, so the event organisers, in this case BitKiwi, basically have pre-arrange a tab with the bar, and then they have a Lightning set up so you can pay some sats, and then you get a small, sort of token that you then take up to the bar, and they kind of collect that at the end of the night, and they can kind of see how many drinks that they have gone through the bar, and then BitKiwi settle that in fiat. They get the non-KYC sats, and everyone's really happy, and that's actually proven to be a really great way when, for example, in New Zealand, where we don't have a huge amount of venues that accept Bitcoin at the moment, that system's worked really well, and people get to use their Lightning wallets. They've got a really cool setup when you scan the Lightning QR code in the venue corner where we're having our meetup. It plays a little bit of Pink Floyd Money, the cha-ching, and that system's worked really well. But then that night, we all went out and had a dinner at a Cambodian place that did actually accept Bitcoin. And it was like, we all went out of our way. I flew down to Christchurch for this, an hour flight just to be there. And we all had this big dinner, and we all paid with Lightning at the end. And it just, talking to the owner, it was a Cambodian guy, we got to know each other, and I was like, man, there's certainly this social aspect that you can connect over with when you pay over Bitcoin, So I've really enjoyed going through that process, and it sounds like it's sort of the same with what you're doing in Suffolk. People are going out of their way to come to this venue, you're building those new connections, and then perhaps you find people start collaborating, they start thinking, hey, look, let's start a business, we've got this idea, and it seems like getting people in the room is very valuable,
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of liken it to joining a sports team. I've moved around the country, around Great Britain in my life, and I've always played team sports. So when you join a new club, you kind of instantly get kind of a new network of friends, and there's that connection over the shared passion of the sport. You can talk about tactics, talk about kind of how's your season been going so far, all those kind of things. You have that kind of instant connection, but it still takes a while to develop those kind of deep connections, I suppose, and friendships within that network. But I found the opposite with Bitcoin. It's just instant. There's straight away there's that shared understanding of the level that you're kind of thinking and operating at, the things that you've been reading, the ideas you're chewing over in your mind.
Yeah.
And it just kind of it cuts so much time out of getting to mix. You just instantly you have a shared point for which to start a conversation, and quickly move on through the friendship. So the people that come to the meetups, we see each other maybe once a month for a few hours, but every time it feels like meeting someone that you've known for years, when actually it's not. It's once or twice sometimes. The conversation I sent to Telegram, they're just really interesting because there's a broad range of topics. And the level of technical expertise in there, like I said earlier, it's just I just sit on the sidelines quite a lot of times, just kind of washing over my head because I'm it's lost on me.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of you've got the best people in the room. They're very technical, and you can learn a lot from them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's blokes setting up their nodes like for the first time. We're talking about inheritance planning and all the different multi-sigs and options and ways around it, and it's fascinating. I think certainly that the inheritance planning is key for lots of people at the moment, because generally you're the only person in the family that is in this space. So knowing how to preserve your sats for your wife or children, I think that's
Sorry, I'm circling back to Simon, just talking about the Bitcoin Events UK and how you've really been able to get these leads and generate new business interest in accepting Bitcoin. That's actually really similar to something that I've been working on here in New Zealand. And I believe you might know, do you know Rob as part of Laser Eyes?
I do. Yeah, I was going to mention that.
Yeah. So
yeah, he's been a guest on this podcast, hasn't he?
Yeah. So I've had Rob on the show. I met him for the first time in Christchurch the other week at this particular meetup as well. I'd known him, digitally before that, but right. He's a great guy. He's from the UK originally, right. And he's part of the LaserEyesCards project as well, and he's working on Accept Bitcoin and Accept Bitcoin NZ, and looking at. Yep. Similar to what, in a way, because we had this conversation just the other day, and sort of what you said around building a pipeline for sending Bitcoiners to venues and to shops that accept Bitcoin. That was kind of something that we sort of came to as well as a conclusion, is that building a website, getting some nice material, kind of thinking of it as a marketing company, and then effectively the outcome is that, look, we'll send Bitcoiners your way, and they're going to go out of their way. I'll go anywhere. If there's anywhere in my city that's going to do a coffee or going to cut my hair, I'll go there no matter how bad the haircut is, or how good it is, I should say. But like, that seems like it's a really powerful vehicle to get those touch points. And so I guess where we got to was building a website, and, my background is photography and design. So I've been working on building a bit of a visual identity for businesses, smiling faces, get a nice real profile shot of the owner. And I've done that for one place so far, but we want to get a few more as we build the new website. But then sort of tell their story, because for each shop, I imagine their story is going to be a little bit different. For some of them, it's like, hey, the transaction fees on the card, traditional cards is too high, or hey, I actually really want to just support this network. They're going to each have their reason. And if you can kind of give the case studies, and then really prompt people visiting that site to say, hey, why don't you submit your business? Here's how you get started. Are you a service business? Give Breeze a go. Are you, a tradesperson? Give this a go. This is how you set up your integration with your accounting software. Here's some ideas you need to consider for your tax considerations. We're not going to give tax advice, but these are the things you should probably think about. And give it just a bit of info, because we haven't got much in New Zealand at all about the kind of that technical side of, hey, how do I account for this stuff? Where do I find info about it? Giving all of that. And then when they're finally ready to set themselves up, they can submit their business to us. And then we'll find somebody to go there and give them that touch point. So within a couple of days, maybe in a couple of weeks, someone's gone out there and said, hey, I want to pay in Bitcoin. And then they get that touch point. And I think I'd like to hear your perspective, Simon, but I feel like that's really important, is to make sure they have that touch point of someone actually trying to come and pay with Bitcoin,
Yeah, first off, I've never actually met Rob in real life, but we've talked a lot via Zoom. We have like a fortnightly Laser Eyes meeting, so I feel like I know him.
Yeah.
I think that came out of Chris and Peter, who's also part of Laser Eyes. Met him at the Bitcoin Beach here in the UK, in Wales, and so it's another example of what can happen coming out of when Bitcoiners meet in real life. But yeah, I mean, it does help a lot when businesses see that other businesses local to them are accepting Bitcoin as well. So we use that when we went to the Excel, this expo that we've just been to. We had some big boards printed which had quotes from the businesses that are accepting Bitcoin, a range of businesses. There was a hotel and a pub. There's a restaurant in London that's been very successful. They're having every 2 months, I think, there's a kind of a Bitcoin meetup at that business, and they've had 40-50 Bitcoiners turn up for those. It's a really big one. It's not really an official meetup as such, but it's bringing a huge amount of business to this restaurant that otherwise wouldn't have got it. But showing these quotes was a real big eye opener, I think, for some of the business people that were coming past and seeing our stand. Once they, I could see people stopping and reading those and actually saying, "Oh, okay, there are other businesses accepting Bitcoin. There's a hotel. This isn't just." Bitcoin isn't just used for people trading. I think that's what a lot of people think, just assume that Bitcoin is people trying to get rich on the internet, and the connection there isn't with a lot of people that it's a currency. And I think that's what we need to do a lot is show people that it's actually a currency. I mean, it's designed to be a currency. So once they make that connection and realize that they can acquire some of this magic internet money by just accepting it at their business, it does make a big difference. And I found when I go to businesses and we go in and talk to them, it's much easier when you can say, well, Joe down the road at the hairdressers, he's accepting Bitcoin. And they're like, okay, there's a bit of a network effect that starts. And quite often I've found you'll go into a business. There's a skateboard shop not too far from me that I onboarded, and while I was in there chatting to him, he just said, oh, you should go over to there's a burger van just across the way there. You should go and talk to him, because I've talked to him about trading Bitcoin before, and so I went over to talk to that guy. So it was a much easier sell to him. He was like, in a few minutes, he was like, yeah, why not? So he was accepting Bitcoin, but it's that building that network effect. That a lot of the work, I didn't have to just guess which was going to be the next business to look at.
Yeah,
the community sort of did a lot of my job for me.
Yeah, so just following up on that. So number one, social proof, right? So you've got, say, one business down the road, and then the next one, it's easy to say, hey, these guys are accepting Bitcoin, why don't you? But I'd love to hear, I've got two questions. So number one, what pitch and what sort of angle in terms of Bitcoin, if someone's open-minded, because if they don't want to know about it, then they're not going to know about it. But if they're at least curious, what have you found works, best? And then also, in terms of the fiat question, people wanting to convert their Bitcoin into fiat, how often and has that question come up, and how do you answer that question?
Oh, the pitch. So the pitch, I mean, the pitch is basically that we're a marketing business, and if they accept Bitcoin, we will market their business to the Bitcoin community. So we have, our Twitter account's got, I think, like 1,500, nearly 2,000 followers. People that want to spend their Bitcoin and want to know about businesses that are accepting Bitcoin will follow our Twitter account, and so we'll market their business. We put them on the map. There's the BTC Maps project. We put them on that. We put them on our own map that we've got on the on our website, and it's a free service as well for starters. I mean, if we were charging for it, we wouldn't get many takers, I don't think. So there's no cost for them. We help them set up. We help them decide what's the best solution for their business. Whether they've got set staff members, it's going to be a little bit different from if they're just a burger van and it's one guy. They probably just need wallet of Satoshi or something, and they're up and running. We provide them sometimes. Well, quite often we give them the Bitcoin accepted here stickers and that kind of stuff. But I think once they realize that we are part of a community, and another great, like when we were at the Excel Expo, that was paid for. That, I mean, that was quite expensive to get an actual exhibitors place there, and that was paid for by the Bitcoin community. We had donations given to us and some funding, so we sort of used that as part of the pitch as well to demonstrate how loyal and how passionate the community is about pushing adoption and increasing adoption. So yeah, there's really no drawback. And once they realize that, and that we're not trying to sell them Bitcoin, and we're trying to bring them new customers that they wouldn't otherwise have had. But then, the Trojan horse part of it is that, once they're holding Bitcoin, they will begin to learn about it a little bit. They're going to start looking, as we all did. We all bought a little bit to start with, just to make a bit of money. Most people did, and then as you're holding it, you want to understand it, and you want to understand why it is this 500 quid that you've spent is now worth 2,000 quid. So, and that hopefully that's what will happen with the businesses, and we've had that with some of the businesses. There's a pub in London. There's two. They have two different pubs, and the first pub, he wanted to convert to fiat, and then when we set up the second pub, he decided, he said, I think at this pub, I think we're going to keep the Bitcoin at this one. So it'd gone quite quickly from saying no, we're gonna change it straight to fiat, to deciding, okay, yeah, no, we'll keep the Bitcoin, because he was beginning to meet Bitcoiners then. He was beginning to think, okay, maybe he was listening to conversations perhaps as well that were going on in the pub, and then thinking, okay, there's maybe a bit more to this.
Yeah.
But your second question about converting to fiat, I mean, the benefit that we've had, and I don't know if it's CoinCorner. I don't think CoinCorner is available down there in New Zealand. I don't think it is. That was a big sort of plus point, I suppose, big benefit for us, where they have made it very easy to change for the merchant to swap just directly to fiat. So, someone goes into a cafe and spends £20 worth of Bitcoin, it goes over the Bitcoin network, but then as it arrives in the merchant's account, it is changed back to pounds. So there's no tax liabilities or anything with capital gains. There's no worry for them about volatility. So, I mean, and that's another reason when we explain that to merchants, there is absolutely no downside to accepting Bitcoin, because they don't even have to handle Bitcoin. If they've got a negative kind of view of it to start with, it's purely just bringing in new customers. So it's a big bonus that we have. I suppose in the US they have Strike and things like that I think probably do something similar, and hopefully CoinCorner will, and other businesses like it will start doing that in New Zealand. But I think it is a hard to sell when you can't say to them, okay, if you're bothered about the volatility, you don't understand Bitcoin, you don't have to hold Bitcoin. It is a bit of a harder sell.
Playing on hard mode, so, and that's when I was talking to you, Jason, about that, because I was sort of curious how your cafe did it. And that we have your meetup, and you just said, yeah, that's just Vault Pay, and then you got, I think they just convert straight to fiat or something. And I was like, wow, that's so cool, because I mean, we don't have that facility here, and so we've only really got hardcore Bitcoiners who are the business owners at the moment, sort of early days.
Yeah, there's 2 coffee shops or tea rooms in Suffolk that accept Bitcoin, and they both use CoinCorner. I think the first place, that the Suffolk Jungle Room, that was the first place in Suffolk. So that's Daniel Prince's brother. So that's kind of that was initially the big pull for lots of people. I think they're just hodling, and the other place they just sell for fiat, because they just, like Simon said, they just see it as an extra way to attract people. I would hope that within 12 months, when they start seeing this regular flow of people, I'll say regular, but we meet. So because we've got 2 venues now, we alternate each month, to share the sats around.
Yeah.
But because Bury is a market town and it's historical, there's a nice tourist attraction, people that come to our meetups will come to Bury kind of throughout the month, and now that's the place they go for their kind of cup of tea and their lunch.
Yeah. And
it's not on the high street, so you have to look for it. So
yeah,
those people wouldn't be going there if it weren't for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And it might be kind of 4 or 5 extra customers a month, but for a small independent business, that can be a lot. And then, as Simon said, at our last meetup, there was 25 of us, and I booked a table for 10. I was expecting 8, and then more people kept coming through the door. It was just that I could see that the owner looking at me, kind of going, "Who are all these people?" I was like, not a clue.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I guess a question for both of you, in terms of sort of circling back to the community side of things and meetups, like what makes a successful community? What are the challenges you've had with communities, especially things like Telegram and that? Like, what's your approach to that? What have you found are some really important things to aim for to have a successful meetup, a successful Bitcoin community, wherever it may be in the UK?
Yeah, well, I think the sort of the model that I've sort of tried to um, recommend to people is to get a Telegram group going. I think and- because I mean a lot of what we do, I suppose, as Bitcoiners goes around Twitter these days. So I think the best sort of way to do it is to create a Twitter account for the meetup, and then create a Telegram group as well, and then you get the word out on Twitter, because it's great for networking and everybody retweeting things from other meetups, and then funneling those people that are kind of interested in that area into that Telegram group. And then once you've got that Telegram group with a once you've got 10 or so people, you can start talking about venues, where people are around that different area, the county, wherever it is that you're located, and start deciding on times. And I think I'd tried to I varied the time of my meetup. I think Jason's got a good model there with just having it as the last Sunday of every month. That seems to work well. I think we've kind of tried to, like, because Bedford is not too far from us, so we sometimes go to the Bedford, Peter Cormack's Bedford games. We're doing that this month actually because it's the last game of the season, and there's a big meetup before the game. So we sort of tie in our meetup with the Bedford meetup, if you like, because there isn't a Bedford meetup much other than the football one. So we haven't sort of had a set date, if you like, that we have it, but and so our numbers are up and down. We might have 5 people at our meetup one week, and the most we've had was 22. So it varies quite a lot, but yeah, I think like getting a simple logo. I think some people sort of overlook that, and I mess around with Photoshop a bit, so I've helped a lot of the meetups do their logos. So just a Telegram group, a Twitter account, and having a logo to kind of get the brand kind of going and brand it, and then and just let it build from there. And at the moment, I mean, I've been saying it for ages, but where we've been kind of in a bear market all through this year that we've been building this, it is a great time to get a Bitcoin meetup started, because what you get at the meetup is just hardcore Bitcoiners. You're not getting so many people that are really curious about, they've heard about it because the price is going crazy, and they're coming along to a meetup because they want to get rich or something. It's Bitcoiners that understand Bitcoin.
Well, it's a good way to build the foundations, right? So you've got a good meetup culture to start with, and then when the people come in, eventually you're ready to go.
Very, very important, yeah. And I think so get and then get that foundation right, so that when we do have the next bull run, we've got all that in place, and the educational side of it, you've got other members of the meetup you can trust that are not shitcoiners, and they're not gonna they are gonna give that right message out. So
does that reflect your experience as well, Jason, in terms of what makes your Telegram group, your Twitter, all of that successful? Like,
yeah, I'm not sure why or how it's worked really. I think we just got lucky with the people that are in the area. I'm beyond kind of sharing a place and a date and a time to meet. It's very much a community rather than like my club. So I in terms of like moderating the chat and in the Telegram, things like that, there's no need to do that, because like I said earlier, everybody's on the same wavelength, and it just handles itself. In terms of Twitter, I will kind of engage with things that I find interesting, or retweet or like things that I think were useful to people. Like, if there's, I don't know, an interesting news story, or a new place locally that's accepting, or even if it's somewhere else in the country, because inevitably you've got friends and family around the country. It's just raising the profile of those businesses. Like Simon said, they're a marketing, British Bitcoin, they're a marketing agency effectively. So we're part of that community. So it's just raising awareness of that business.
Yeah.
I suppose it's reducing the friction as well for other people. That it helps normalize the word Bitcoin a bit more. And I think my experience of talking to businesses about it, they're very much they're scared of the price volatility because that's what all they've heard about generally. They're scared it's going to be a scam or something like that, or if this thing I can't afford a full one. Well, how can I haven't got £20,000 lying around to buy one? And it's like Sam said, we're not asking you to buy a Bitcoin. I'm saying there are people that want to come and give you Bitcoin for the things that you're selling.
That works really well, I think, is that sort of flipping it, and it's basically free marketing, and what business is going to turn that down. But I guess one thing, just coming back to the community side, so I mean something we've found in New Zealand, obviously a lot smaller here, but keeping conversations, focused, keeping conversations sort of digital, Telegram groups and things. Always running into these sort of challenges around, they get too big, they get unwieldy, you get shitcoiners come in, you get different things happen. And I've been very cognizant of that myself. And, finding the signal has always been on my mind, making sure that there's a degree of curation, but not censorship. There's a degree of moderation, but not being overbearing. Especially, we're in a bear market, as you say, but coming into the bull market, when there's, everyone is wanting to get in on it, challenges around things kind of getting unwieldy. I don't know, is that something that you've encountered at all, or have you found by keeping it quite localized, each group has their own Telegram group, that you don't have those issues?
Yeah, I think I think all the communities have got their own Telegram group. Simon has set one up for the people that run the local meetup group. So there's about 40 of us in that group. So if someone has, I've got a meetup coming up this week, they drop it into that Telegram, and then all the admins of the Twitter groups can go and retweet it again just to raise awareness of it. I think it's an interesting point though, as the number goes up, you might start getting more people coming in just to ask questions. So then it might be, okay, the people in here have been here through the bear market, they're asking kind of specific technical questions, and now they're answering the same question again about, no, don't use that exchange, no, don't buy that coin. It could get difficult, but it's not something that we've encountered so far. It hasn't been on my radar just yet.
But yeah, no, that's great. So the meetups that are going good. It sounds similar numbers to what we get with the BitKiwi meetups that I've been at. Sort of 20 to 30 people.
Are they always in Christchurch, or do they move around?
No, they do move around. So we've had most of them here in the capital in Wellington. And then Christchurch was sort of our out of town one, but as I said, Christchurch is beginning to feel like it's the Bitcoin capital of New Zealand, and I'm really liking it. In fact, the city's growing on me. You might know they had an earthquake a number of years ago, and the city's kind of been rebuilding from that. So it's kind of a nice rejuvenation of the city as well, and some new thinking. But hey, look, Jason and Simon, it's been really great to chat. I had some other questions that I wanted to go over, but I think maybe that will be for another call, just about sort of the public perceptions of Bitcoin and sort of where it's at in that space. But really, I'm really glad we were able to catch up around sort of this merchant acceptance and meetup stuff, which is really what I wanted to get into, because we're kind of, you guys are a lot further along in that journey in the UK than we are here in New Zealand, but we're sort of looking at what you're doing and saying, man, we really want to bring some of that thinking here. And it's really curious how we've kind of come along to the same conclusions around marketing Bitcoin businesses, offering that as a thing, building a website out, approaching people. And certainly Rob has helped with that, and a few other people who Simon, you've talked to.
Yeah, we've had conversations with Rob actually, obviously, about it. So, Bridge to Bitcoin is the method that we're using is free and open source. So we're just happy to help all other countries. We've spoken with some guys in Iceland as well, and I think where else? Some guys in France. Whenever there's other groups of people that want to kind of do this similar thing, we're happy to talk to people. So if there's anybody out there that wants to get in touch with Bridge to Bitcoin and sort of learn a little bit about what we do and how we can help you, we're happy to have that conversation with people.
Yeah, sure. Well, look, wrapping things up, guys. So it'd be great. How do you want people to follow along, get in touch? What's starting with yourself, Simon? Like, if people do want to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Well, Twitter's probably the best place. I mean, I'm Hodl Solo on Twitter, and in my bio, there's links there to my meetup and Bitcoin events and Bridge to Bitcoin and LaserEyesCards, as we've mentioned, which is a partnership with 5 of us with doing the bulk cards, the NFC bulk cards, but they're just better because they've got laser eyes.
Yes.
So yeah, check out LaserEyes.cards to have a look at the gallery of the cards that we've got on there. But yeah, Twitter's the best place. Hodl Solo, and give me a follow.
Sweet, thank you. And Jason.
I think there's going to be far more interesting people on Twitter to follow than me. But there's if you do, it's at Suffolk Bitcoin on Twitter. And again, I think there's an Instagram page there, but it's just local stuff.
Yeah. No, hey, look, I really appreciate it from both of you. And as I said, this has been really great to share these ideas as we kind of begin the journey. I think probably the big missing part for us at the moment in New Zealand is that fiat off-ramp, the easy kind of way like you have with Coin Corner, though that hopefully will become a thing in the next little while, having that something like that available. But more broadly, getting Bitcoin businesses online, places in every city, every town, having at least one place you can go to build that community up and get people talking about it. So I do hope we can all catch up in the UK. I would like to go visit there perhaps next year or later this year. I definitely would love to see what's going on over that side of the world. But I appreciate both of your time, and hopefully we can keep in touch.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Yeah,
great. Nice to meet you, Cody. Have a good day.
All right, thanks, Jason. Thanks, Simon. All right.